Hey everyone, I'm back to share more about the visionary state experiences, and today I really want to talk about one of my favorite parts. And so before I get into that, I want to show you where I am. There we go. This is my backyard facing west. That's Lone Pine Park. You can drive up there and walk up there pretty quickly, or you can park at the bottom and take the long way. Now, if you could see the other direction, like you can't from my window because there's other houses, but if I went down to the road, I could probably see the Rocky Mountains. Look, so now I'm in the process of packing out, and I've been in the process for a super long time. And I think last time I showed what was going on in my room, I had a lot of boxes here, so I've cleared those out. And I'm collecting stuff I want to keep. This is like the only furniture I have in my entire living room, aside from that some broken old chair, right? So I don't have much going on here. It's pretty ugly. And that's why I've been saying the only thing I really have to make me at home is this little section of the room that I've been saving my music collection and my pictures. And so as I tell my stories, I just put this right behind me, because I don't really want you to look at this ugly house. Now, this is actually a cute little house, but in order for me to stay here, it needs some work. And then if I were to stay here, I would take all my stuff out of storage and I would be happy where I am. And it's like the first time I've had my own house with a bedroom and a bathroom separately, you know, instead of some dinky little studio apartment or just living in somebody else's. So when I came to live with these guys, I was staying in the attic and they had the bedroom, and then I ended up living in this little trailer across the alley. And I was really hoping the three of us would move into a better place, but my older friends, they got vaccinated in 2020, and then in 2022 they died. And after Rosie died in September of 2022, I started this video series I called the JodyVision, kind of explaining what brought me here to Montana. So it's not such a bad thing. It's a beautiful place. I'm just west of the Rocky Mountains in this one little flat spot between the Rocky Mountains and the Salish Mountains. Like I showed you over there is kind of like the very edge of the Salish Mountains. So it's very beautiful. And the only reason I don't want to stay here is I really need some companionship from somebody who I can live with closely. And I have a good friend down in Denver. And as far as I'm invited to go down there and live there and kind of get a new start and start working on my music project there, which I'm kind of excited about doing, and that's been my basic plan at this point. The only way I'm not going to go to Denver is if something changes my life dramatically, like if I find the right job or the right opportunity. Then I would either stay in Kalispell or, you know, not necessarily go back to Denver. But going back to Denver has a lot of positives that I'm looking forward to. So when I talk about these stories, my next story is about the time I went from November 2nd of 1999 to January 27th of 2000. And this happened when I was living at the Acacia building in Denver. And you know what's crazy is I dream about that place a lot still, you know. So I tend to dream about places I've spent a significant amount of time, like my grandma's house or the house I grew up at. And so I think it's kind of amazing that I dream about that house, or that apartment building, because that's what I've been thinking about lately. And in my dreams, I feel like I have a place there, like I still have that apartment. So I don't know, I lived in that apartment for a good 5 years, and this was kind of what brought it to an end, is like too many weird things were happening and I had to move out of this place. And so anyways, I just happened to put this shirt on, and I think it's cool because if you've been watching my videos, something I've mentioned is that we went to see a concert. Flew my dad into town to see Frontline Assembly, and they canceled. And we ended up just going to see Zymuck. So I just left these pictures out to show. Here's when I was dressed like a tiger, and we went to that show. Now, when I time traveled, I skipped over Christmas. These are just a couple shots of me and Chris went to see my dad on Christmas. There's my cousin Steven. And I time traveled to the just a few months in the future, and that's where I ended up getting my hair braided. So I have these sets of pictures out just to share a little bit more about that period of my life. So I'm gonna have to go over that period of my life a few times to deal with all the layers, right? So anyways, very interesting story, and I don't want to mess this up, so I'm going to try to pace myself, and I'm going to cheat. I have a cheat sheet here, but I can't write this all down and follow a script. It's just more of a cheat sheet. Where, okay, so let's see now. So if you've been watching my videos, my dad had just been in Colorado to visit me, and I had a colorful time slip there where he seemed to be drawing some connection between Bill Leib and an army general known as Willem Leib, that was known to be one of the good Nazis that didn't want to go along with the bad things that they've done. Because I've looked them up a little bit later on. Maybe I typed in Willem Leib on the internet just looking for Bill Leib the artist, and then that's like the only other Willem Leib that ever comes up, so it's a very, very rare name apparently, right? So anyways, when my dad flew home, it had to have been like November 1st or November 2nd, and that's when the time trip began. So somehow I must have slipped into the parallel dimensional timeline. Now my friend Lynn and Jeremy were staying with me, and Jeremy always seemed to know what's going on. You know, he's kind of a smart guy and seems to inform me on a lot of things. And this time we were heading out of the back of the Acacia building, so on the basement level you have to go past the boiler room, and there had been some talk that, you know, something's going on in the boiler room. Either there's an anomaly in there, or maybe some pathway. So the Acacia is known to have underground pathways connected to the Capitol building, which may have tunnels to various places where you know, these politicians don't want to be seen coming and going. And this building in particular is one where the politicians and bigwigs kept their would you have a married man with a mistress, so that they would come and see their mistress by coming through the tunnel. See, so this building has a history with Denver, and it's on the haunted house tour every Halloween season, which I think I was aware of it this time as well, and people would tell me the mysterious things about this building. So. So this time we were walking by, and the door of the boiler room was open, and Jeremy goes, "Hey Jody, let's go in there and check it out." And I'm just like, but what if we get caught? And he's like, don't worry about it. So, like, don't twist my arm, huh? So we ran down there. It was just like a short set of stairs down into there, and then and as soon as I walked down into that room, I saw this white flash, just like poof, you know. And I'm like, "Wow, Jeremy, did you see that?" I'm like, "What do you think just happened?" He goes, "Well, we're in the future now." I'm like, "The future? Well, how far do you think?" "No, not too far, maybe about a couple of months." He said, "You know, we're somewhere like towards the end of January." Well, somewhere towards the end of January. Now let's see here, what's on my list? So that's where he told me we were in the future, okay? Now, another time, I noticed I had this table with a glass top to it, you know, kind of maybe some metal legs and a glass top. And I'm like, "Well, where did this come from?" And he's like, "Well, you found it in the dumpster, don't you remember?" And it's like, "No." And then I found these really neat stack of bracelets. There's like 5 of them I kind of think correspond to the 5 elements, and maybe 2 of them correspond to the numbers like 2 and 3, kind of, you know, maybe by Quinky Dink. And I'm like, "Well, where did this come from?" And Jeremy said, when I went to see my dad during Christmas, his girlfriend Dale, she gave me that as a Christmas present. And I was like, well, I don't remember that, you know. And so I don't know if he again mentioned that it's because you know, when I time traveled, I skipped over Christmas. And that's why I don't remember having these bracelets. So I can't figure out exactly how I put that together, but that's why, you know, I'm like discovering things that had happened, you know, before I got there to where, like by January 27th, where I arrived in the future, I had acquired this table and these bracelets, right? But I really did like the set of bracelets, by the way. They, like I said, I think they remind me like the 5 elements, and then the other 2, so they're like 7 altogether, and 2 of those kind of made me think of the numbers 2 and 3. And so it was just a colorful synchronicity that my dad's girlfriend did in fact give me those when I went to Key West for a Christmas present. And so here I was in the future discovering this, going, "Oh wow, where did these come from?" You know. And then one day he and I were gonna walk down and go to the bank. So, you know, I was living just to the east side of the Capitol building, And so we went down 14th Avenue and crossed through, I don't know, Civic Center Park, between, Broadway and Lincoln. And then, so that puts the Capitol building to our right as we're walking through kind of one of those curvy shaped sidewalks. And so we're just walking along, and there's a speaker up there. I really had no idea what's going on. Had a crowd of people talking to them. And Jeremy's, did you hear what he said? I'm like, no, what did he say? Jeremy said he wants to lower minimum wage. And I'm like, really? I said, let's give him the bird. So he and I were both flipping him the bird together. And the guy noticed that was giving the lecture. He was up at the podium and he saw us and he said, some people might not like what I say, but I don't care. So anyways, we continued walking along, and that's when Jeremy told me, Jody, you realize it's actually February 3rd, but people don't know that we're in the future yet. So when you see the date, it's going to appear to be November 8th. And so we got to the bank, and I think I was depositing my paycheck. And yeah, sure enough, it did say November 8th. So let's see here. Now, so that's when I was first able to, so anyways, not maybe first able to know. So I've been told already we're in the future. And this is where I'm able to kind of figure out what day it is. So, so that helped me to figure out, be able to do the math. And that's how I determined that January 27th was the day that this time trip begins. And I'm not sure exactly what day of June it ended, so I'm pretty sure I was there for at least a week. And then I went back to November 2nd. So anyways, while I was there, let's see. I put in my notes here that while I was in the future, there was a couple of times, like, I felt like something was going on. Like, I almost felt like, I know I'm not dreaming because I know I'm awake. I know everything's real, everything's solid, but there's just something kind of funny about that. I just remember, coming home to my apartment building and coming up the front steps and just feeling like just something's really off, And then, and I was riding the bus to work one day too, thinking about it. It's like, it's like, well, if I time traveled, it was like kind of vaguely crossing my mind, maybe I'm, in the future on a time trip, and I realized I couldn't remember Christmas, stuff like that was kind of sinking in. Now, let me see, the last memory I had before I woke up from this was that I was staying over at my friend Jim's house. I had this friend who I met shortly after I first moved to Denver. I got my apartment. So a big older guy. He was like half black, half Lakota. So he was always kind of a different person. So we kind of made friends just for the fact that not only is he different, but he's a little bit psychically inclined. And I'd come over and tell him, what's happening to me, And so he finally offered to let me stay with him. It sounded like the best thing for me to do was to get out of that building because I knew it was on the haunted house tour and that there was some psychic activity going on in there. And I thought maybe that was contributing quite a bit to the events that were happening to me in that apartment building. So anyways, I woke up back in November 2nd, but I think I was still in the visionary state because that's where I got a little more input from. So I had this one crazy friend named Mark that came over once in a while just to smoke bowls and chat. And so he came over and he said, wow, Jody, it seems like you've been gone quite a while, like, like a good 4 or 5 months, don't you think? I'm like, no, I was pretty sure I was here the whole time. Now, when I woke up back in November 2nd, by the way, I almost forgot to mention this, is I saw like a bright light, like there was like it was a gentle white flash, and then I was just there in my bed back at the Acacia. And the very last thing I remembered was that I had just fallen asleep at my friend Jim's house. So I felt like I like knew somewhere inside that I must have just time traveled. And that's why it was interesting, like after feeling like that, I think the same day, that's when, Mark would come up and just sort of knock on my window and I'd invite him to come around and open the door for him because I don't think I had a phone hooked up, and so you couldn't just call me from the front door. So like it just seemed like shortly after I woke up and started getting my headset, that's when Mark came in and asked me if I had been gone for a while. Now I was still a little confused about the date. Like it's almost like I was starting to flash back on where I was, and I starting to remember during February I was working at some banquet, And so I was kind of flashing back, so I thought maybe it's February, and then I found out, nope, I'm back in November, all right, you know. And then on one day I was alone, and I think I had a clock hanging on the wall someplace, and it was making this kind of weird sound, and I went and looked, and it was like the hands on it were sped up, you know, like they were just going, you know, just some kind of weird stuff. And then I think I came out of it, you know, came back to what we call the regular timeline, back to like the real life timeline, you know. So that's just sort of a brief description of me, you know, leaping from November 2nd to January 27th, from 99 to 2000, but then from January 27th into about the first week of June. I was in the process of moving out of the acacia to hopefully get away from the problem. So in reality, I ended up going to Key West to see my dad for the Christmas and New Year week or two. And I don't know, we could probably put in about a week or so down there. And I got my friend Chris to come because I just felt like something very strange is going on. And I just wanted to have somebody with me from Denver, you know, somebody to just kind of watch my back. And so I don't know how to explain exactly why, but I just felt like, you know, I knew some weird stuff was going on, and I just couldn't quite put my finger on it. And so, let me see here. So I'm going to get into that a little bit later, but I want to briefly touch on, you know, we're looking for something to do. And Chris was like, here, let's watch Fifth Element. And I said, you know, it's funny. Somebody told me I really got to watch this movie. So we watched Fifth Element. And so you got to see this movie. It's just cool, like it's like they get this extraterrestrial with red hair, you know, who's supposed to, what you call, save the world. And I love this character because part of what she has to do is learn about the history of the Earth. And at some point she's just like, you know, why would I want to save this planet? It's terrible that people do such terrible things here, right? So sometimes I feel the same way. I feel like, you know, I have a good heart and I wish I could, you know, save the planet sometimes. But when you look at the history, like, for God's sake, I kind of feel the same way. So, you know, strange thing is I really don't like to keep the TV going and watch a lot of movies, but I've just been, you know, put in front of the TV on time to watch some really good movies that it really tells you why storytelling and movie making is a precious art, because it does create a way to get ideas out there like this. So I think Fifth Element had some pretty valuable ideas that I may need to be put in alignment to see this movie, right? And so seeing this movie, there was the section in the middle of it where, okay, the camera was scanning. It looked like they spliced it in, like it just seemed like cheaper footage, you know, like it went from like really good quality film to just like cheaper footage and then back to good quality. Like somebody must have took the movie out and like replaced it with one that had this extra thing in there. So this extra piece of movie showed me and Jeremy walking past the Denver Capitol. So it scans the Denver Capitol. There's the guy talking, you know, and you could hear him saying, some people might not like what I have to say, but I don't care. And you see me and Jeremy down there walking along, flipping this guy off. And later that day, it had me scratching my chin thinking, you know, that sure did look like me and Jeremy. And I kind of remembered actually doing that. I was kind of, it made me remember doing it. And so even then, it still went kind of on the back shelf of my memory, right? So then back in reality, when we did catch up to February 3rd, Jeremy and I were making that trip to the bank. You know, I think he and I were working for a temp agency that sends us out to banquets and stuff. And so we were making that trip to the bank in reality. And that guy was out there in front of the building, in front of the Denver, it was actually not the Denver Capitol, the Colorado State Capitol. So I still to this day, I'm still not even sure who that was or what he was doing up there doing the lecture. All I know is when Jeremy said he wanted to lower minimum wage, I said, let's flip him off. And we flipped the guy up and he said those lines, you know, same thing. Some people might not like what I have to say, but I don't care. And so later that day I was reflecting on that, just thinking, man, that's just really eerie to me, because I remember doing the same exact thing last year. And then I remember going to Key West and seeing this footage in that video. And then I got really upset because I thought, oh my goodness, somebody must have went into my dad's house and put that in there. So they got footage from the future, sent it to the past, stuck it in a video, and they snuck it into my dad's movie collection because they knew I was going to watch this goddamn movie. So that's when I really started to get paranoid. So I wasn't working that much, and Lynn and Jeremy went their own way because I was just really obsessing about what's going on here, so this was really, kind of where stuff starts to escalate. And so me, Lynn, and Jeremy were all going to try to move into a bigger place and sort of have like a 3-bedroom apartment where we could split the rent and have all the space and have each other's support, but with me not working and me going on, it just seemed like it was better for them to go their own way. So it worked out for them. They did they've been good buddies for quite some time, and they ended up living together in a couple different places. And so so it worked out beautifully. And then I ended up going to stay with my friend Jim for a little bit. And I had a little boyfriend situation for a little bit, but then I ended up going to Greeley to stay with my friend Chris Smith. I just thought, so I became a taxi driver. And I thought if I just got out of Denver, like at least if I wasn't staying in Denver, maybe no one would bug me for a while. So living in Greeley, I didn't feel like anybody was bugging me. And so I would come into town and just be a taxi driver and then go back to Greeley. So that's, I think this is one of my favorite stories. I have a few other stories that I think were pretty colorful as well. So just a brief recap is, so my earliest memories of going into visionary state of 1982. I was 6 years old, living in the Florida Keys, close to Key West. And so briefly, it was as if my parents were friends with this woman, Rosie. So she was staying nearby, and she was taking care of a little boy named Billy. Now, he's supposed to be Bill Lieb, right? And so I would meet him maybe a couple more times, a number of times before we discovered Frontline Assembly. And so we started listening to Frontline Assembly. I quit having Billy come to me. So anyways, I'd say that picture right there, I clipped that out of a magazine. So when I was about 18 that summer before I did my last year of high school, my dad handed me a magazine, and I had a visionary slip where he said something to remind me, isn't that your little friend from down the street? So anyways, it's kind of neat that I found these little frames at Walmart one day, and I bought them thinking, I don't know what I'm going to put in them. But these guys are important because they both appeared to me in 1982 in those early visions. Now, I knew Rosie quite closely. But, Billy but I only know each other because I'm a fan. I've been to his shows and I've contacted him. But yeah, this is kind of where it started. And then after I moved to Denver, I'd gone to see the band a couple of times. So here, Frontline Assembly was scheduled to come in 99. They came in 98, November 98, April 99, and they were going to be in Denver for Halloween, but they canceled, and this is why I was dressed like a tiger. And then, so I went to see my dad around Christmas. That's me and my cousin. And then, so now when I went to the future and I was starting to remember, oh my God, I feel like I've been in the future. I went and got my hair done like this for a little bit. So very interesting time because this is where the big revelation was being made. So basically what's going on here is, so we're talking about November 8th. That's when I take off to go to the future. Then I come back. But then when I went to see my dad, seeing that clip on Fifth Element, that's the thing that really grabbed my attention. So there's a couple reasons it's interesting. Just because of the fact they used the movie Fifth Element, I feel like that seems to be kind of suggesting like maybe this is happening on Earth in some way. Maybe there are certain souls born on Earth that are contributing to this upstep of planet Earth. So it's kind of a new agey thought. So it's kind of cool. We talk about the 4 elements are being used. And so I kind of think of my friend Rosie a little bit like that old priest. Now, what I was going to say about that is at some point I ran it by Rosie, when I got back in touch with her and I told her what was going on. She said, you know what, when I watched The Fifth Element, she said, she also saw the clip of me and Jeremy in Denver walking by and flipping off the guy at the Colorado's Capitol building there, okay, the state capitol. At any rate, she knew it was me, and so I don't know what else she saw in that movie, but I think another thing I saw in that movie is it looked like part of it was filmed at the Acacia building down in the basement in the hallway, and it looked like a jail cell with Bill Leib in it, like he was giving himself an undercut, and then so I don't know if there was a part like that in the movie or not, but somehow it made me think when I saw it, it looked like it was filmed at the same building I lived at. Now, in earlier stories, I told you I've seen clips where it looks like it was filmed right in my apartment. So this is really scary to think that somebody's getting footage right there, either in my apartment or of me walking through town flipping off some bigwig. And then going in my dad's movie collection and putting the copy in it that they added the extra footage to. And then I started remembering, oh, that's right, Jason told me about this. Jason said I have to see Fifth Element because I'm going to be in the movie and they're going to be filming me when I don't know about it, right? So super spooky. Now, let's see here. So I wanted to make sure I covered all of my points because I thought it was interesting that Rosie also saw that same clip of us flipping off the speaker because when she saw Fifth Element, she also felt like, you know, she'd known me long enough. She felt like the character in that movie reminded her of myself. And since I've come to know her, she's mentioned to me, she always thought that I'm psychically gifted and she needed somebody to help me. She knew that I needed somebody to help me because when you are psychically gifted and you have paranormal things happening in your life, it can drive you crazy if you don't have the right people to talk to. So when she was growing up, her grandmother was her coach and she's run into other opportunities to learn and enhance her psychic awareness. So she seemed to be much more clairvoyant than I was and than I am. She was more clairvoyant than I am. And she had a lot of colorful experiences that I may have shared some of those already. But I want to touch back on Rosie, seeing the video and seeing that clip is just really amazing because I felt like talking to her about it sounds to me like it did give her some confirmation maybe that I'm the right person to help. So, at any rate, when I come back, I guess I'm going to have to tell a little bit more about between the time I time traveled and the time I got to, that would include my trip to Key West. And it was a really difficult time because what was happening is it was stirring up my memories and I was starting to flash back on growing up with Billy and all the little hints and stuff. And that's where, for me, it was very stressful and scary because it made me feel like there's all this stuff going on around me this whole time, I'm just catching on. And of course, the people around me like, oh, Jody, you need to get professional help. And so that's only more frustrating. And in hindsight, I do recognize that something had been inflicted on me. And it's something that can induce sort of it could be like a psychosis causing event. Something like that would drive a normal person crazy, right? So that's to be understood. So I was definitely confused and stressed out by this. And it's awfully scary to think that something is kind of getting in your head that way and being able to manipulate you so much. And so that's bad enough as it stands, right? But then not having anyone to go to, like the people around you are like, Jody, you're delusional. Jody, you need help. Jody this, Jody that. And then my friend Rosie, she had moved away and we had lost contact. So I wasn't able to contact Rosie. And so I was kind of isolated. Anyways, let me stop this now because I need to come back and share a lot more. There's plenty of time and we got our whole life ahead of us. So you guys have a great day and a great life. Also, have a good one. Talk to you then.